Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited that you guys are here with us. We have some fun and interesting talk tonight, something that we are often asked about, and we want to make sure that we share it. So, before we get started, let us share a little bit about us. I am Melisa Alaba, group practice owner, and money breakthrough coach, helping women through their relationships and also have an amazing relationship with money. I am excited because I am joined by LaTasha Billingsley. Welcome, LaTasha.
Hi.
And LaTasha does so much for us over at Visionworks Counseling and Coaching. I'm super excited. We're heading into our second year as a group practice, and LaTasha was my second hire. And I'm so glad we both chose each other. Yay! Yes. So, LaTasha, please give the people what they want. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right. So I'm LaTasha. I'm a marriage and family therapist. So I specialize in family work and couples work. So if you have a family, which I know you all do, or a spouse or a partner, or you want to have a spouse or a partner, I'm the person that you want to talk to.
Love it, love it, love it. And it's so interesting because, you don't just do marriage counseling, you are a certified Gottman therapist. And as well as but you've even gone up another level than me. So, like, look, I got to get myself together. It's been a minute. I got to tighten up. But what are some of the things that you really help people do in that marriage relationship through that Gottman work that people don't typically get when they see marriage counselors?
The main thing is building that foundation and really getting tools that work.
Mm-hmm.
Something that's tangible that you can see immediate results from only if you do the work. Like it's only immediate if you actually do it. Like I can teach it to you, but you actually have to do the hard work. And once you do that, you will see things turn around quickly.
I
And
love
so,
it.
yeah.
And I think the thing that just really, like when people are calling, they want to get back to connection, back to intimacy, back to trust. They want to be able to move past things like infidelity and then having that step by step process of doing that so they can truly transform their marriage. It's golden.
Right.
And also just like your family work. I mean, that's what we're going to get in and talk about tonight is healing the past, working through changes, and getting to where you need to be. And as you know, and Latasha's done a lot of work with myself, my own family. Like literally, this is one of the people that, and I really say this about everybody on our team because people always ask me like, do you have a favorite? And I would say like we have so many like boss women who have true like specialties in what they do and skills. I love everybody. But Latasha is one of the ones that I've just seen. I've been able to see some of the transformation. And I know like with my own family, like one of the things that you taught me about was enmeshment. I knew about it. Y'all know I knew, right? But when you have it reflected back to you, it was like, oh, yes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's especially for like us therapists, it's very easy to kind of like realize things exist, but hard to see it within ourselves and in our own space and be like, what? I'm really not like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still am. You be getting them texts. You be like, see, this is exactly what she said. Uh-huh. No, just I'm all good with it. So let's talk about moving through change. Right now, a lot of people, just like pandemic stuff is still here. We're moving into the second year of this. We're very much coming up on that second year anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
I started this practice right before the pandemic started. Like I got that inkling to start a group practice. I started in February. I guess it was getting started in other parts of the world, but it hit us in March, and I thank God that I did because I had this calling to truly help Black women. And that's what we do here at the practice. It's like we focus on healing trauma, childhood trauma, and moving women of color and their families to a better space. But when we talk about change, all the changes that we've gone through, what's some of the stressors that you're finding that families are dealing with right now?
One of the major stressors that people are dealing with is just the consistency of change, right? Because people like to get complacent and comfortable. And I like to use the word complacent because it sounds bad, right? So it makes
Yeah.
people really want to move. People get complacent in like the new normal. And then when it changes again, they're like, oh my God, I really just got used to that, right? And so the thing is, change is consistent. The only thing that is consistent is change, right? And so as long as you're on your toes and prepared for it, you can go into it, right? Into the groove and not let the groove come into you.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. So if you guys are just tuned in, the name of our group practice is called Visionworks Coaching.com. So you can go to visionworkscoaching.com. Name of the practice is Visionworks Coaching and Counseling, but visionworkscoaching.com. If you're in the Georgia area, anywhere in the Georgia area, we can support you as we are a full telehealth community. That was something else that was new. I was partially doing telehealth. And then as we grew, because we grew during the pandemic, it was like, okay, we're going to be 100% telehealth. Let's do it. But that was one of the changes. So when I think about people, 2 years ago compared to now, everything is online. So they're working from home. So you're in one room working, your kids may be in another area. Your husband is saying, hey, what's for dinner? If you're in that type of household, right? And your boss is literally in your bedroom with an assignment. So literally having to navigate what that changes. And I'm sure you've had, tell me what it's like when you have clients who are calling and they're just stressed with all the multiple roles that they're carrying inside of the family home because of our situation.
Right. And so I did want to like take a step back and say we're like 99.5% virtual.
It's because of you. Look, I won't even claim that anymore. This is the only person that's coming in on Saturday. I don't tell people this anymore because I'm like, this is not, we're going to end this in 2022, but this is one of the only people at the practice that you can see in person at her chosen times.
Space is very limited. It's always full. But it is possible. So the first thing that I tell people is to set boundaries, but then also have realistic expectations. So because you're working from home, right, and your husband is here and your child is here, it may not be a realistic expectation that you're going to be able to cook 3 square meals a day because you weren't used to doing that. People at work, people were at school, you were just getting by with cooking 1 meal a day, right? And that's okay. So don't put these unrealistic expectations out there because people feel like you're at home, right? And don't let other people put unrealistic expectations on you because you're at home. Like your supervisor thinking you can do more work because now you don't have to commute, right? You can tell him, no, like the devil is a lie. Like a lot of work.
Right.
I don't get, extra time just because I'm not commuting. I'm still commuting from my bedroom. That's still a commute. So making boundaries and setting realistic expectations with your boss and your family. And I know for a lot of people, it's scary to set expectations and boundaries with your employer because you're like, oh, I need this job, right? But you have to be in the mindset of this job needs me more than I need this job. And that's very apparent, especially now going into our second year of, like I like to call the panini, in our second year of the panini, right? Everybody is hiring, right? Because we have options. So, let your employer know, like, this job is an option. Like there's other places that I can go. And so really putting yourself first and setting those boundaries and those realistic expectations across the board.
I love it. And I think as you said that, it reminded me of some of the clients that I work with. For many people, they didn't have good boundaries in the first place or healthy boundaries in the first place. So this situation only brought to life things that were already happening. So they may have already been in a relationship where things were not, it's never going to be equal, but there weren't shared responsibilities. They may have already been overgiven at work, right?
Right.
Over promising. I remember one particular client. I said, this was your assignment for this week. I just want you, before, when they say, hey, this particular things needs a volunteer, you just don't say nothing. All I need you to do is just sit there, just don't respond and see who else raised their hand. And she was like, oh my God. Like, she's like, it was so interesting to see that when I didn't say anything, eventually someone else did. And I was like, because it needs to balance out between you and your team. You can't always be the person saying yes. And then once everybody else's workday is over, you have all these extra responsibilities. And for me, I often see that with Black women is like,
Over giving and
can you hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Interesting. I don't know why that's doing that. But over giving in the workplace.
and then trying to make up for it by later. That is weird. I don't know. Hear me okay?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. It keeps popping up some stuff on my screen. But as long as you can see me, been in the workplace. I don't know why. That's just weird. Given in the workplace and then just feeling bad about it. So a lot of times just having to standards and new boundaries with yourself.
Right. And then to create a schedule. I know in the beginning of the panini, it was cool to be able to work in the bedroom or roll out of the bed in your pajamas and work. But that puts you in a mode of, I can always work. Right. So you really do need to like really set a routine and maybe put on some real pants so you'll know the difference between when I'm working and when I'm not working and give yourself
Absolutely.
some boundaries in that.
Absolutely. And then also making sure that we have time and space between our work and then actually having recreational time. So typically you would have driven somewhere and you would have had your 20-minute, 30-minute, hour drive on the way home to decompress before you went into motherhood, wifehood, any of these different roles. So being able to just give yourself a moment, whether it's in your closet, whether it's, hey, let me step out and take a walk for a moment, whether it's let me go and go to a class that's outside the home, or as we have many clients who work with us while they're sitting in their car. Let me go out and have me a session so I can just get alone and gather myself. That is so big. Again, you are listening to us as Visionworks Counseling and Coaching. I'm with LaTasha and I'm Melissa. I also just kind of want to shift because we also talked about healing the past. So one of the things that we're also seeing, and I talk about this so much, is although we have a lot of people who are experiencing change of jobs, we have a lot of clients who have just moved here from another state, just getting in a new relationship. In the newness, and sometimes even in the calmness, is when old stuff comes up and that past history and childhood trauma that we've dealt with. And people, I'm loving the space that we're in now. People are starting to recognize that they're having triggers from what I would really consider PTSD from our childhood come up in conversations and things like that where it shouldn't. A lot of our clients are coming to get support around. So, Latasha, tell me a little bit what you feel like that work entails when people are looking to heal some childhood trauma.
Well, the first thing, the most important step, which is like the hardest step, right, of anything, like the first step of anything, even A, is like acknowledging, right, that it exists. And I always say that if you don't deal with your trauma or your past, it's going to deal with you, right? So it's going to decide to pop up whenever it feels like it. So, in the most inopportune time is when you're going to be triggered, when it's going to come up, when it's going to bother you. So you have to take control and acknowledge that this thing did happen, right? And then from there, we can start to work. But I think the hardest, most difficult thing is to, one, acknowledge that it was a trauma, but then two, recognize that there was a trauma. Because for a lot of people, if that's just kind of how things were in your house, or if that's kind of how things were generationally, you don't even see that as a trauma. You see it's just like, oh, like that's just kind of how things were for me. I thought it was kind of weird, but my mom did it, my grandma did it, my great grandmom did it. That's not trauma. That's just reality, right? So acknowledging, one, that it is a trauma, right? And accepting that, and then working from there. Oh, I guess we lost Melissa. I don't know if we're still connected. But let's see. Okay, she's back. I don't know if she's frozen. Can you hear me? Are you still frozen? I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on with that, but yeah, that's the most difficult part, and the first major thing that needs to happen is to acknowledge and accept, recognize that it happened, but then also give yourself some space to work through that, because one, it was a different situation when you went through it, and you have different tools now than you had when you originally went through that situation. Okay, I think she's back. So I'm not sure what's going on. But yeah, so just recognizing that you have different tools, you're a different person, you're a different space, you had different resources than you had when that trauma occurred, and that you don't have to move through that trauma as you did in the past.